Hey everyone, and welcome to the AI Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Joseph. Today we're very lucky to have Mani Sarkar on the podcast. I forgot to ask you actually, Mani, how would you like to be described? Technologist, AI enthusiast? What's your moniker?
I think you can put AI enthusiast plus technologist because I'd like to not just be enthusiastic about things, but I also apply what I learn, or at least I try to. And so I put myself everywhere, wherever I can apply myself. So, like, hence the event we met at where we were, doing stuff and learning from it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, shout out to Ian Oswald, of course, founder of the Rebel AI community from which this podcast was originally born, and now running these LLM playgroup days. I think inspired by the playgroups that his young son goes to, but getting together people with interesting and different backgrounds to look at how we can do different and fun things with LLMs. And yeah, I really enjoyed meeting you last Friday, and great to have you on the podcast today. But so yeah, Manny, tell us about your technology origin story. How did you get into tech?
Yeah, so it's a long story. So I'll just sum up the 25 years like in real quick few less than few minutes as possible as I started off being a backend engineer or a backend developer, and in those days it was early days where like I was enthusiastic about Delphi. It was also around the time when Java kicked in, but I
Mm,
was very interested in Delphi because I liked everything about it. They had the best compilers. They were visionaries who brought that product into the market.
mm,
Unfortunately, they didn't survive for a long time. We won't go into that story. And
mm,
so, as I transitioned into being a Delphi developer, it was let's say 10 plus years, and I started asking myself, "Am I really doing this right? Am I
mm,
like really? Do I have all the things I need to do?" And then I started asking my question. I really need to upgrade myself because I'm seeing there's a lot of stuff happening around me that I don't know. So I started going to tech meetups and tech communities, and that was also around the time when I came to London, and I started going to all kinds of events. There was an institution called Skills Matter, and I joined them,
mm,
and I used to attend as many events as I could because at that time I wanted to find my space. So sooner or later I started meeting all the interesting people, and there were like these communities like LJC, London Java Community, LSCC, the London Software Craftsmanship Community, and I started meeting people who actually knew stuff, and some of
mm,
them also knew Delphi. And then I started getting interested in open source contributions, and that led me to Java because that was massive at that time. Even now,
mm,
where the contributions come from like 10 million developers, and so that led me to understanding. Okay, these things are not just talking about Delphi running on Windows. These developers work on all the three operating systems, and you need to develop software that works
mm.
on all the operating systems: Windows, Linux, Mac, and that kind of made it like made me think that it's very important to actually make yourself a lot more broader than just do one thing, which is Delphi on
Sure.
Windows.
Right.
I bought myself three different types of computers. Like I got myself a Mac. I bought a laptop that I dual booted to Windows and Linux. The primary operating system was Linux. So because I
Mm,
wanted to push myself on the deep end, just knowing
mm,
Windows wasn't good enough, right?
right.
And then I started joining a lot of meetups and a lot of going to a lot of events at Skills Matters, joining a lot of open source projects,
Mm,
and
mm,
started contributing. And
mm,
basically, you need to create your profile, right? Like it was only 15 years ago when I had like a LinkedIn or Twitter profile, when people, earlier than that had all those profiles set up because I didn't
mm,
know what it was about setting up, raising a profile. So that's where it started off. And then I've been doing Java for quite some time. In 2017, I started freelancing and doing projects on my own. So I quit my
right.
permanent role, and that's when I slowly, 2018 onwards, I started switching to Kaggle and data science and
Right.
then machine learning because a lot of my clients were doing data and machine learning, and I was saying, I'm actually not getting those projects. Why is that? Well, because
Mm,
I don't know enough of it, that they don't recognize that I have the skills to do the. So I put myself on the deep end there again. So again, another
mm,
pivot, right? Way from
mm,
Delphi to Java, open source, and I still continued open source contributions till today. And now I'm focusing a lot more on data, machine learning, AI, and then comes the LLM and generative AI
mm,
space where you and I met each other in the same under the same umbrella where we would have
mm.
met just for like Python related stuff or some other related stuff, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of my story. I think I took a little bit more than a few minutes, but I was
Yeah.
25 years compressed in that period of time.
Well, great summary. And yeah, well, I guess we cap it off. We were sort of talking in the pre-show about your sort of a tech lead on a sort of t team now. Maybe just give us a quick summary of like how would you describe the focus of what you do at the moment in more context?
I'll say that it is challenging. I learn every day, and managing team and technology expectations aren't the easiest. but I'm learning to be more and more hands off and just drop in a few ideas, steer a few different things, and basically make the end goal clearer every time. And repetition is absolutely needed here. And then that kind of helps shape the technology solution that we are building that we need to deliver on
Oh,
on
right.
a periodic basis.
Okay. And so you're kind of like a hands-on tech lead. And is that still as a freelancer bringing other freelancers together, or you're working? Well, what?
I'm working. I have switched from being a freelancer because there were lots of changes in the industry.
Yeah.
So about 2022,
Yeah.
I switched to
Same
taking
here.
up a permanent role. That worked out better. And but the style of working, like I was very much um, driven towards enabling my clients all the time. And I
Yeah.
feel the same ethos is where I'm working at is that we try to make the client independent, as opposed to, if you know, there is this practice in the contracting freelancing world where you want to actually hold on to everything because you're scared that you need to be the prime factor there and you don't want to pass on the knowledge, and not everybody does that, but that was that. But the better practice is you enable the other person, whether
Right.
it's you're a client or a business, and that way they become independent, but then you
Mm.
also get the next level of opportunities and uh,
Right.
challenges that you need to solve for them.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant, and yeah. So of course, it's how we met. It's on the AI. It's everywhere these days. I'm particularly interested not only in how you're using AI at work, how AI is affecting the work, how you're using it to deliver solutions, but also personal stories of how AI is affecting your day-to-day life outside of work. Yeah, what would you say the biggest impacts are?
Oh, massively. So, I mean, I was started from like writing, like, doing notebooks on Kaggle and creating mini machine learning models and putting them into competitions and all that, to actually using them through different applications. Like today, I have Perplexity AI app, I have the Claude app, Claude.ai app on my mobile phone. I have the
Mm,
Claude desktop. I've got Cursor running. I've got Claude code running inside Cursor.
mm,
And I use Gemini CLI, and I
mm,
use mix match all of these. And whenever I have something like you
mm,
sent me an email, I wanted to quickly understand what it was. I put it in Claude. It told me, oh, focus on these things. That'll make your conversations better. So now,
mm,
kind of, I have a mental model of how we're going to do this podcast.
mm,
Although I've not like it's not like uh, prescriptive that I'm going to follow that. It's just giving me a better confidence. So I use AI in many things. Like for example, if I want to organize an event with my friends, I quickly
mm,
use Perplexity's deep research to find out what are the best things available in this particular region. And then I propose to my friends and they say, oh,
um,
that's great. We've been there. That's great. So I already have a lot of background research done on a lot of things before I do it. Uh, there are some areas I don't use AI. Like I do art and sketching and painting on Fridays, actually
oh,
every Friday. I
uh-huh.
don't use Note. I don't use any tech or AI for that deliberately because that's my
Okay.
decompressed time where I go on,
Sure.
yeah, totally disconnect from technology. And we
Mm,
use all the traditional tools you can think of minus tech in
wow.
that 2.5 hour session. And on Saturdays, sometimes I do a sketching and drawing, same thing. The group
Mm,
I go
mm,
to, we all are, I mean, there are some people who come in with their iPads to do
mhm,
Procreate and all that, but that's independent, it's their choice. But I go with my watercolors, my sketch pens and all that stuff, pencils, to do the stuff. So there are areas I deliberately chose for no tech, no AI to be influenced. But then there are areas I have massively used, like all my coding work. I use
mm,
it massively for referencing, cross-checking,
mhm,
testing, rechecking, all of that stuff. Ideating, like I spent on a project. If we speak about it later on, I spent almost 3 weeks talking to Claude on a project on actually honing all the different angles I need before I even started writing one line of code on it. So basically,
mm,
ideating and getting like the deep into
mhm,
the weeds of the matter of what we're actually trying to solve.
mhm,
So people say, oh, AIs come in and our jobs are going to go. Actually, no, AI is here to enable us to make us better than what we have been. So there's one fallacy here
mm,
that, oh, AI is going to do everything. No, AI is not going to do everything. You're going to steer AI to do stuff,
mm,
right? That's where I'm looking. Also, AI is going to make our jobs easier, but unless you steer it rightly, it can also
mhm,
go into dead ends or ends that we already know about, where we have lots of things generated that we actually don't need, or lots of things
mm,
generated that's like wrong or incorrect
sure.
and all that stuff. So yeah, so there are those things you need to be aware of. It's
Mm,
here to augment us, and we need to take advantage of how it is. One last thing I want to say on that is that
mm,
everybody's put on the same playing field, but Here, our own previous experiences and habits and skills are still going to be at play because
Mm-hmm.
in the past, if you didn't have those skills well formed, and now you're going to use those skills to use AI to do the same things,
Mm-hmm.
that will reflect in AI and it'll magnify a lot because AI can produce a lot of stuff in one go and it'll be a lot complicated to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely need to master your skills, get better at what you're doing. Those traditional skills don't go away. AI and AI related tools are here to augment
Mm-hmm.
those skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? And magnify those skills.
Mm-hmm.
But if those skills are not seasoned, then whatever the quality or condition of those skills are, it'll reflect in the code.
Right.
So like my habit of writing code has now changed a lot. I don't write code immediately. I think,
Mm-hmm.
plan, discuss, think about it, draw, and then go back and redo and reiterate, as opposed to I would have just opened up the IDE and started writing code, and then it would
Yes.
take a certain form. So that's kind of where AI is going and how AI is influencing my life. I'm actually super happy that I'm able to discipline myself even more because now I know the pitfalls if I don't,
Right.
right? You already know this, right? Hallucination and bad code and you name it, and the whole
I think
rigmarole.
yeah, absolutely. I don't think anybody that we talk to is an unadulterated. Everything is great with AI. I think we're all aware of the different sorts of pitfalls. I mean, I'm. It's great to hear about your no AI in the art and sketching. You've got like a little sanctuary there. That's fantastic. I was particularly interested to hear about you talking about using Perplexity for sort of event planning. I mean, I was just like this morning. I just come back from my morning cycle, and I had a thought about. I mean, I've got this sort of let's shall we say it, there's a sort of debate which might be characterized as like testing versus typing, and I just thought I'd I have my own intuitions about it, and I just thought actually I'm just going to ask GPT-5 deep research to kick off
Hmm.
like while I have my shower.
Yeah.
It can go and like dig and dig and dig and like see what academic references there are, what blog posts there are, and so I've got now like running in parallel with me getting ready for my day. I've got
Hmm.
reports to work through that. That's where I think that the ability to do that from my phone is really 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 convenient. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're all using AI extensively, to adjust the coding experience. I mean, I think and we'll come on more maybe in our later questions about augmenting versus replacing. But yeah, I mean, I'm sort of on the way I've described it before is like the AI it's like it's an extraordinary accelerator. If you're
Hmm.
pointing in the right direction, it can
Agreed.
move you fast really forward.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, if you're slightly off direction, it can slam you into a
Yeah,
wall.
yeah. I mean, it's like a blind headless chicken, right? Oh, headless chicken, whatever you want to call it. But it knows how to run in a certain direction, or like a rhino runs in a
Yeah,
certain direction. If you really steer it and course correct it,
right.
it'll actually take you really very well and very fast. But if you don't know how to course correct it and don't know when to stop and don't
Yeah,
know when to like start again, then it's it doesn't have a mind of its own. People think
yeah.
it's
I
got a
mean,
mind. And it has a mind of its own, but it doesn't have the thinking and cognition that you have,
yeah, but
like the
it
rationality.
can get stuck. What I find is, you know, I think it will get stuck in loops occasionally. I mean, I think what's
Yeah.
ironic, like from experience recently, is I've just been spelunking into a completely new code base, and for a relatively simple feature with adding a thing to the API, I used I forget was it probably GPT-5 to like basically take the stakeholder. This is a discussion of what we need, and it translated that directly into a like a PR, like all the code. I didn't write any code, right?
Mm.
And this in this simple, relatively, this is not like a hugely complex feature, it's relatively, but it's a completely new code base that would have taken me quite some time to come up to speed in. It can give me a pull request that's a functional working pull request that can
Hmm.
then, so they're like there, that's great. But that took, literally minutes. But
Hmm.
then in the process of trying to get set up with the debugging environment that I wanted, I spent like a day and a half going backwards and forwards with different AIs trying to work out like the debugging framework. And
Yeah.
like I think the trap for me is and a bit like that thing that we all learned when we were first coding is that kind of the sense that this current bug is the last bug. You can get stuck in a personal loop where you're like, oh, okay, it'll be done in a moment because there's this thing, and then but you fix that bug when it reveals another bug, and then
Yeah.
kind of sometimes with the power of AI, it's so enthusiastic. It's like, oh yeah, no, I totally see what's happening there. Here's this solution, and it gives you, and it'll definitely work now, and you can be, and that's I guess is the key thing is like that, your sort of metacognitive process to say. okay, we're stuck in a loop now here. What's, the fact that it takes, I don't know, what is it, a minute or two, particularly, I don't know, like the new thinking models that seem to be a little bit slower. There's a kind of tendency to sort of almost sit on your hands. Do you know what I mean? Like you kind of
Mm,
like there, and then you try the new thing. I don't know. There's something, I think there's both benefits
yeah.
what's the, I can't think of the opposite of deficits. That's not right. But I'm kind of interested.
Boons and banes, right? You can
Yeah,
say, yeah.
yeah. But it sounds like, I mean, you're in the process of using lots of different things. I guess you don't have a favorite amongst these tools. You're just trying to use everything that's available and
Uh,
see what you can get out of all of them.
Actually, not true. So I use so for deep research and any questions I want to get answered, I always use Perplexity.
Okay.
If because I'm on the go, I have Perplexity everywhere. But if I'm at home working on my code, then I'm always using Claude.ai or Claude Desktop and Claude Code, and I switch
Mm,
between the two. And Cursor now and then. And when I have maxed out on both of them, I use Gemini CLI as my
mm,
last resort. Right.
mm.
So my favorites are at the still moment is still Cursor Code. And if you've seen their latest development, I think their agent SDK that they released, it's worth taking a look at. I could share with you some resources on that. They have done some amazing meta job where the agent that they themselves have built for
Mm.
Cloud Code is what they're handing over to you, that you can create your agents. Sorry, the harness that they built to run their agents
Yes.
is the harness they're handing over to you through the agent SDK, and you build your agents on top of that. So their agents and your agents are no different. Now, with this comes a lot of responsibility and power, and also it comes,
Mm.
risks as well. But the rewards are that, like, and it's also simpler. It knows a lot of stuff, and you can reuse a lot of the stuff that's already there. Like, unlike other as agent SDK, and I've not done an extensive comparison of any of all of them, so not an expert in this space, but it
Mm.
looks like the others are not as native as the Cloud Code system is. So what
Mm.
I'm sensing here is, oh yeah, and they have an agent called data science.
Mm.
All right. So basically, a data science is a developer who's actually going to
Mm.
be helping you solve data science problem. Not going to be long, not far long ago, far into the future, when they'll have an AI engineer or a software engineer or a DevOps engineer or a security engineer
Sure.
as an agent. And then all it needs is further tuning and perfecting and making them better.
Mm.
So I'm looking them at these agents as augmenters. Oh yeah, or in a front end developer and a back end developer
Mhm.
as well as an agent. So I'm looking at these agents like as augmenters to our skills, not replacers of our skills.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
that.
yeah, Cloud Code and Cloud Desktop are my favorites.
Mm.
When I'm on the go, it's Perplexity, and sometimes I'm in Perplexity because I like to keep segregations of what I ask where. Like if
Sure.
it's a lot of personal stuff, but I ask a lot of tech stuff and non-tech stuff as well on Perplexity. But Cloud AI has become a lot more developer related, and Cloud Code has become a lot more developer related conversations. Any blog posts I'm writing, or I'm actually working on
Mm.
a post which I'll release soon. Actually, some of the links you guys shared, including yourself,
Mm.
in the chat that I've gathered together and I put in a post, I'll actually share that link with you.
Mm.
It's in progress, but I've used all of these tools to put the data together, organize it, and I'm now curating it, fixing all the things I wanted in a certain format, in a
Mm.
certain way. And so I am using Claude a lot compared to
Mm.
the others.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we'll make sure to get all the things in the show notes for the listeners to check out. Yeah, I mean, there was a period when I was really doing a lot of Claude,
Mhm.
and then no, I've kind of like it's pretty much Cursor and Codex and GB5 for myself. Although within Cursor, I'm often switching between different models. I mean, I was excited trying out the new Claude 4.5 this week. Yeah, and
Yeah,
but so
it comes with Claude Code already as a default model.
sure, and then it's also in Cursor as well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's that. I mean, I guess
Cursor
it.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But so yeah, we're all being accelerated, sometimes perhaps in slightly the wrong direction, by these all these different support and tools. In terms of the solutions that you're delivering, and maybe you can't talk about what you're doing specifically, but so are you like you're delivering solutions? Are you also using agents or LLMs as part of the pipelines for deliver like or a RAG system or what have you or is it more that you're kind of delivering like as a traditional solution that's just been AI augmented in its creation?
So at work, we are limited to using certain tools. So we can't use certain tools. They're not approved because they need to go through the.
Sure.
It's all also very client voiced and client driven. So at work, I am building. not like a RAG system, but like a audio, like a video, or not video, sorry, image processing and text processing.
Oh yeah.
Um, and but we are using AI to do a lot of that stuff. And we are using limited AI tools to build on top of that, to build those things as well. But it's a mix. It's mostly traditional programming, and then where we can't use AI to ask for, like, testing it out and stuff like that, we're using AI. But at home, I am using all the full suite of tools. And I have a project going on, a couple of them actually. Almost 10 weeks ago, I did a bit more than 10 weeks ago, I did like a boot camp. It was an
Mm,
AI engineering boot camp. It was very intense. Actually, it was run by the folks in the US, so I had to switch to that time. So
mm,
imagine they were up like 12. For me, it was 12 at night till like 2 in the morning. So I did that for 10 weeks, and the outcome of that was they needed a midterm project. That means at the end of the fifth week,
yeah.
you have something like a certification challenge project, which actually shows that what you've learned so far, you have been able to build something. So I built an application, and then towards the end of the 10th week, they have another project that you need to demonstrate called the demo day project, which is like your capstone project of any. So I did that, and basically the bootcamp actually enabled me to think, like, innovatively about build something that's actually not there. So I actually ended up building something called Rack Check. That's the name of the tool. But what
Mm,
it does, it helps you analyze your corpus that you will
mm,
use to build your RAG application. So you're actually doing pre-retrieval checks on that corpus
mm,
way before you're going to build the RAG app and
mm,
deploy it and then find out things about it. And that process is quite an expensive process. So the RAG check, actually what you do is you hand over your data corpus to it, and you hand over the interactions and the questions that
mm,
you think you would receive, because you need to know how your app's going to be used. Otherwise you cannot test it out, right?
mm,
It's like you're testing your corpus, and then it runs a whole lot of tests using that, and it produces a whole lot of visualizations, including things like how many chunks have been retrieved. Are there chunks in there that never have
mm,
been touched at all?
mm,
What's the accuracy or relevancy score for so and so question?
mm,
Like,
mm,
do we have answers to every interaction and questions that's
mm,
taking place? If not, there's also something called gap analysis that's generated. So
mm,
gap analysis will give you recommendations, or these are the whole set of suite of questions
mm,
or interactions you actually don't have enough data in your corpus to answer. So they are
mm.
going to be answered, they're going to be interacted poorly. So do something about it. And then you go away and you collect, more data about it, and then you augment your corpus and you rerun these experiments again.
Cool.
So it's all in the open. I can share the links. You can
Please.
share in the shell. We've got a video to show you how to use it. And it's a GitHub repo, so you can clone it and run it on your
Mm,
own. And yeah, it's early days. It's just a very early idea. It's got some foundation. It needs to strengthen, and the idea needs
yeah.
to mature. And yeah, so I'm quite excited about it. And I've used a whole bunch of things to develop that, and I definitely had to think about it and
Mm.
steer the ideas to get it into motion.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's get the link in the show notes.
Oh,
Wonderful.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing, just to reflect it back to you, is so a work you've got. I mean, I think we all at work, myself included, there are restrictions on exactly which tools can be used and have been
Yeah.
approved and that. But yeah, it sounds like you've got like sort of a traditional, somewhat code, but then you've got all that. It's a bit like everything about like a car production line. You're still producing a car, right? But you've got these work robots that are the AI is coming in
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
helping produce the cars slightly
Yeah.
faster. I think the exciting thing that we'll see how well it pays off is the use of not just the robots to kind of like improve the efficiency with which we deliver cars off the production line. Is
Yeah.
now, can the cars themselves have AI embedded within them, and it sounds like or can there, even more than that, can there be agents that are being not just being used to kind of like speed up that pipeline, is now, is the pipeline generating agents that themselves are then deployed as agents, and then I mean, this is the, I mean, I think it's, I mean, Ian was asking in the oh, I forget, it was Rebel AI or play group, but about there's this MCP and a lot of people setting up MCP servers, but where, if any, is real value being delivered there? I think interesting open questions. But if I've accurately summarized, and then you've done this more exciting stuff in the bootcamp stuff, which you can share with us. I was going to segue from there to say. I'm assuming that I've been correct. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Is to move on to the leadership side. So you're like a tech lead. You're helping coordinate the work of the people. What is, your approach to leadership in terms of making that work well?
Well, it's early days for me because I only started doing this like about a year or so.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm learning like a hands-off, let them go and make the mistakes kind of approach, and more like a
Yeah.
servant leader approach.
Brilliant. Well,
Like
no,
I
man,
I have like I have people in my team who are a lot more technically qualified me on some of the things they do. So I
mm,
actually pair with them or actually go to them and say, is there something I can do with you to unblock you? Like there's that ticket there.
right,
You
right.
probably, if I do that ticket, you're going to get unblocked there, right? So let me,
Mm,
so I'm actually more like a servant leader. I feel that's working quite well because that way I'm also going to, I'm helping myself learn and getting
yes.
hands-on stuff.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's more like, superficial and verbal
Mm,
stuff, which I'm not really a big fan of. I'm more like a hands-on person. Let them go
mm,
and do their stuff. I'll steer them now and then, and I can see their work from their code, whether they're going in the right direction or not.
yeah.
And then I comment in the code, say, hey, we need to do it in this way because if you do it in this way, we break it down in this fashion. In
Mm,
time N, you will have that ready because I've done this before and trust me on it. And then actually, then they see it happen
yeah.
because I break it down in such a way that it's easy for them to follow and then they go and do it and then they see the results. Then it validates to them that that approach works and let's do that over and over again. And so
Yeah.
that it's more like a show by example thing that I do as well, as opposed to like just verbally describing stuff. I mean, there's a lot that I need to learn in that space, but
Mm.
I'm quite happy with like the hands-on show by example approach that I have
Yeah,
with
well,
that.
I'm a big fan of that approach, and yeah, I mean, I guess it would be more interesting for the listeners if I was diametrically opposed to it, perhaps. But
Mm.
certainly, I mean, when I think about it, I wonder is it because I'm perhaps slightly conflict averse that approach is appeals to me. I mean, I think it's also I like my autonomy and independence, and I think a leader who comes in and says, "Right, you'll do this," command and control style. I'm not a fan of working in that environment, and when I'm a leader, I'm, I mean, I think that I always have the danger that that I end up talking to the humans like I talk to the computers and tell them what to do, and I think
Yeah, yeah,
I've learned over many years is actually, I think if you can establish a dialogue and yeah, like you, I mean, I love having my hands in the code. I occasionally have discussions with people who I think lean towards saying they don't want these touchy-feely leaders. They want, a
mm,
sort of a strong hand who will say, do this, and it's or some with charisma or
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I feel
yeah.
like I've got to be open to the alternatives, but certainly what you're saying, that appeals to me on an intuitive
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. But I mean, I'll add to that. I mean, it's not all sticks and it's not all carrots. You need to be in
Mm,
between as well. And switching between these is a hard one. And sometimes I do
mm,
have to direct them. Like when I see that it's actually not going in the way it's supposed to go, because
right.
I know that if it doesn't, the outcome will be that they won't be
Yeah.
ready on team and on day end. And that's
Yeah.
going to be a lot more work for all of us to then prepare. So
Mm,
then I kind of try to enforce like well, in a way that showing them and telling them about the goal that if we
mm,
don't get this done by then, it's not going to be easy for us. And like we are doing this now to ease the burden for the future. And
mm,
and
mm.
it not necessarily it sets home all the time, but by a few repetitions across the along the time, it gets there, and they tend to get there. So I'm not necessarily all the time like I always give the autonomy and like that, but sometimes I notice okay, the autonomy is actually now making them go a little bit too free and in a direction that's not going to be
Mm,
great for
mm,
us.
mm.
We need to, and I obviously cannot micromanage everything because that's not going to make them feel comfortable.
No.
At the same time, having a high level holistic view is also important because at the end of the day, we all need to reach a certain goal together.
Mm.
We don't want people left behind and then they need to be pulled in and then you feel the stress and strain of things.
Yeah, it's tricky. Tricky. Yeah, I mean, I'll just follow up there. I mean, we work in a fast-paced, moving environment. There's new AI tools dropping. That finding that balance between helping people with their work, providing direction, all of these things. What's your trick to managing the stress of it all?
So I actually go by the flow all the time, and I'm quite late and slow in adopting a lot of these things. Like I know the others
Mm,
in the industry or in my peer group or even in my workplace, they probably already have set up all of these things the early days. But I'd like to think that I come in at the time that's best time for me
mm,
because also coincidentally a lot of the tools mature quite around the time when I tend to enter into it because in the
okay.
early days you'll have a lot of things don't work. There's a lot of discrepancies between what happens at a global level and a project level setting and all
Mm,
that rigmarole. And I tend to enter into, whether it's coincidence or whatever you might want to call it, at a time when it's actually quite the right time to start using something.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm a bit ahead. Like I do remember a couple of years ago, I was canvassing and advocating to everybody, we must look into AI because this is what Gartner is saying, this is what Forrester is saying. A lot
Mm,
of people ignored me at the same time. So none of our clients are doing it, so we are not
mm,
doing it. And
mm,
it's like Gartner and Forrester are doing this research and they're forecasting. It's not
mm,
because they are forecasting the present. If you're forecasting the future, is what's to come, right? So you need to be
yeah.
prepared for that in advance. So I have had that as well. So some places I'm prepared and I start adapting slowly. And then when I actually feel that I'm at home with things, I've
Mm,
like it's only recently over, let's say in the last 2 months, I've made drastic pay changes in my dev environment. Like I never used Cloud Code previously. Before I used to have Cursor and I used to somehow use it once in a while. But now I'm like very much disciplined, like everything's going to work in this fashion. My
mm,
system is set up this way, and I'm going to use it this way.
mm,
So let's say in the last 2.5 months, since I actually just before I joined the bootcamp, I started getting more on the ball with these things.
mm,
So it's not like I'm a little bit late and slow, but I don't think that mattered anyway. I got up
mm.
to speed for what I needed to be, where I needed to be.
Sure, sure. Well, I think going with the flow is that. I mean, I think that's one of the keys with all, whether it's the tech or the people or the what have you, is
Hmm.
not fighting unnecessary battles, trying to work
Yeah,
out what the right time is to come in on everything.
yeah.
So on,
Yeah,
yeah,
every moment is the right time, and there will never be a right time because the industry is moving so fast in so many
mm,
directions. And even like now, and in 10 years, 5 years from now, you'll still find some people behind,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Then the old,
But
yeah,
it's a big and complex evolving space. Just
correct.
maybe can we pick out one? I mean, you've mentioned already different ways that you're using the latest AI. Like, what's the most exciting tech hack? Like, what do you like? Like, so for example, previously, we spoke to other folks. They talked about. So it was Alcatel introduced me to the OpenAI advanced voice mode that then allowed me to interview some AIs on the podcast and get their perspective on what's going on. Other people, I forget what, even Eric Jazz was talking about using Conda, so it doesn't have to be an AI thing. But in the last few weeks or so, what like tech hack that perhaps others might be able to pick up and use and get value from are you most excited about?
Oh, absolutely. So a couple of them, and actually, I need to improvise on one of the tech hacks. One of them is like I'm a big fan of running everything, like having one source of truth. So I have like a shell script
Oh
that
yeah.
I provided my README files with my projects that you can just run and it works. Just starts up the application and it's working. So I
Uh-huh.
captured all of the Docker different because that shell scripts actually invokes quite a few Docker instances and
Right.
all that stuff. All of that you don't have to remember. So previously, it used to be three commands. People have to remember, you have to run it one after the other. You have to
Right.
remember which order you have to remember it. Now it's one
Yes.
command. The other tech hack I just recently did was a couple of days ago is so I have this claude.md file that I have at my
Yeah.
project level, but I also have it at my global level. And I
Mm,
constantly keep massaging it to say all that's in the project level needs to go into the global level. But now that claude.md is not available to Cursor because Cursor and Claude
mm,
don't. Actually, in the newer versions of Cursor, Cursor recognizes Claude. But what I did is there's a Cursor rules file
yes.
and you can actually put that in Claude MD stuff in there and it'll recognize and work. What I did,
Mm,
I created a soft link in my
mm,
project to the rules file.
right.
And so every time I change my Claude MD, my project rules files knows those as well.
Okay.
So I don't
Right.
have, so that's why now they're sharing memory
Nice.
together. And in addition to what I did is the blog post I was talking about earlier was I found out a way where, and it's all open information. I didn't find it out,
Yeah.
where you can actually have three applications use the same memory. So they're sharing between each other. Now there are
Mm,
pros and cons and boons and banes to
sure.
this, but now whatever I do in Claude AI desktop, I know it's reading and writing from the same things as Cursor and Claude Code has done. And so they kind of know the context better. Same with
Mm,
Claude Code and same with Cursor. They all know the context of each other. So they can leave, if I left somewhere at Claude Code, then I can continue with Cursor with that. So it's basically bringing in the Claude MD file into your Cursor rules and
mm.
then attaching your memory for each of these three applications to one MCP server that reads and writes from one source of truth. So
Interesting.
that kind of unifies everything.
Right. And then
So
that's
that's
not
what.
just the rules, is that's the context of the conversation is available to all three
Correct.
guys.
Correct. Yeah. So my next thing is, and I just found out, and it's not very well documented or probably documented, but I haven't
Mm,
seen it. You can actually set rules at the global level, although some places it says no, you can't. And I
mm,
want to know when you set the rules at the global level, where is it getting written to? Because now I can make my Claude MD
mm,
soft link there
mm.
instead of soft link to the project,
Right,
right?
right.
Because I want my global Claude MD to always be a
Mm,
global cursor, not project specific. And obviously, if I write something specific to the project, I want those to be picked up by cursor for the project
mm,
only and
mm,
not act as a global level. So that's the small fix I need to do. But that's kind of like
mm.
you asked for one hack. I've actually shared
Oh,
three.
that's a bonus. Bonus. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah,
And when the blog post will be released, I'll share the links with you.
yeah, please,
You will
please.
find this in there as well. There's
Great.
lots more hacks in there than the one or two that I
Yeah,
mentioned.
wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons I kind of quite like Cursor is my ability to switch between different models and maintain the context. Although ironically, I mean, I was in a Cursor
Hmm.
event the other week, and they were saying part of the trick is to not have, like when you are doing something slightly different, is to switch and open a new window to like avoid the context. I think it's one of the things when the contexts get long, the dangers of a given AI getting stuck in loops and being distracted
Yeah,
increase.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts there, but I think we're running somewhat short on time. I'm really interested to kind of come into our next question, which is about what do you see as the future of AI? I mean, you were saying already that you were saying AI is not here to replace us, it's here to augment us. Yeah, tell us, can you want to elaborate on that and what you see the big changes being over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I think more AI democratization for better tooling. Everybody talks about models, but nobody talks about all the things that are fed into the model, like the
Mm,
data that goes into it, all the
mm,
tooling that's available around it. Like evaluation is like such a minority in the space, and it's
mm,
hard to do. And
mm.
there are so much fragmentation is in there. Every time I look into the eval space, there's a new framework that I need to understand, and infrastructure as well, like. Um, there's a lot going on in that space that we don't know
Mm,
so I think the future is, well, at the moment it's very models focused, but the
mhm.
future is tooling, infrastructure, all AI enabled and
Right.
enabled for AI. So there's two
Yes.
different things, right? AI enabled infrastructure, but also infrastructure for AI. That means
Mm,
if an AI applications like multi-agent applications, how do you deploy it in a sane manner and make sure
mhm.
that there's security as well. Like MCP
Right.
servers are not secure. Okay,
Mhm.
A2A is more secure than MCP, but MCP doesn't have. You have to build in security
Yeah.
in an empty MC. So the future is focus on all the bits that make up the jigsaw puzzle, not just
Mm,
like the core of it, which is model. But like and eventually you'll also see model will also disintegrate and find its place into many of these toolings and
mm.
infrastructure and other. So it's not going to be centralized; it's going to be decentralized. So
Right.
so we need to have stronger infrastructure, stronger tooling, and all the things I mentioned, testing and evaluation for us
Hmm.
to actually have systems that are more sane and resilient.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's I think that those are important pieces. I guess just on the you think that we're not going to be replaced. I mean, one of the things that I had spent more time like tuning the rules and so on, and I'm get like what's been interesting with the recent kind of like more thinking models and this that and the other is I've almost like sort of lost patience with the kind of process of tweaking my rules and
Hmm.
then them having like as the new model editions come out, they
Hmm.
then respond to my rules in different ways. And I'm kind of almost like, and then this is sort of a lazy thing, is
Hmm.
I'm almost like I just want the AI to be smart. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
like in the same way that I would be with a human and we're having an ongoing conversation in the context, I want, like, absolutely, we should have the entire transcript of all the things that we've discussed, and it's got little side branches where we had to go off and fix these things. But there's this big overall focus that we're coming back to. Like, from a pure usability point of view, I don't want to have to be going off and like tweaking all of these rules here, there, and everywhere. I want the AI to be smart enough to be able to look at the context of all of the interactions so far and actually, just like a an advanced, capable human would, to just work out what I want and just get on with it. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
and forgive me for going on. I I I think that's also what from these big organizations like OpenAI and Anthropic and everybody. the one that cracks that, right? Right, the one that cracks, the system that can kind of have that, we might call it AGI or whatever it is going to just sort of like accelerate far
Yeah,
on. And I think what you were talking about there is sort of like, the sort of linear extension of like the
yeah,
current model. I mean,
yeah,
we've got these 100 billion, to $1 trillion data centers or whatever being put together now. I mean, do you rule out the possibility that in some number of years there'll be an AI that's it's not just something that augments a human, but it's something able to do, it's
yeah.
got those fundamental aspects of a human and can take the place of a human software engineer, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, I wanted to say is that great you made this long narrative because companies like Anthropic and Cursor, whoever's behind Cursor, should watch this piece of the podcast, if not the whole,
Mm,
because they are not focusing on the holistic, high level, top down view of how
mm,
this should be used, which is where your pains are coming from.
mm,
They're very much into the weeds of the matter. They're
mm.
developing a lot of granular stuff, like what they did with the agent SDK and all that stuff. They're
Yeah,
not, so what you're saying now actually means there needs to be memory and intelligence that's
right.
always remembering and adapting to it, and it does
Yes,
not get affected by any updates that happen to your software. In fact, it knows about it and it's adapting. It should be able to adapt to the different versions of it. Sorry, there
right.
was a question you had that I also want to answer that I think I didn't answer. You see, what's your? Oh yeah, you did say that. Do you think there's going to be AI in some years? I think in less than some years there
Yeah.
will be AI that's going to be able to do our stuff as good as we do if
Mm,
all of the makers of those solutions, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI or the
yeah.
makers of Cursor, pay attention to the holistic approach of
Right.
how humans, how developers, let's start with developers and then the next
Yep.
level are using this, right? And
Right.
how they need to be helped. I don't think every release of theirs is working in that direction. They still don't have a proper memory solution. You see, I had to write something to centralize my memory to configure.
Right.
Why couldn't they think about it? Also, that is not foolproof. I still have bugs in that
Right.
situation, which I'm not
Yeah.
talking about in this cast. Also, they don't have like very sophisticated memory remembering intelligence. You need to
Mm,
use something like a graph database and a
mm,
rack system, which I didn't talk to you about. I'll share in
mm,
the show
mm,
notes.
mm, mm.
That will make that configuration I talked to you about earlier go into the next level, right? Why couldn't they even already think about it? They're at the super cutting edge of this. They should be thinking
Mhm.
about it and delivering it. And for them to deliver this is nothing because if someone can write a blog post to do this, they can write this in their software to make it innate,
Mm,
make it native, right?
mhm, mhm.
So I think they have a long way to go if they don't pay attention to the holistic top-down approach.
Right.
And if they continue developing the weeds of the matter, then they are developing these things for scientists and engineers who are on the field, but they're not
Mm,
developing this for end users and developers like us. Is my
mm,
answer to that
yeah.
question. I don't know how to, and I think we should send this segment of this conversation to Anthropic, OpenAI, and Cursor, so they at least have hear the narrative. Whether they respond to it or not is
Yeah,
another
yeah.
thing.
No, absolutely. We should definitely get
Because they
them.
are not hearing us by delivering all the updates they're delivering. They're not hearing us out,
Right, right.
or
Yeah,
they're not
well,
watching what really needs to be developed.
well,
And if they are
absolutely.
developing it, then why they're not releasing it?
Yeah, no, well, I think all the listeners, if you've got friends in OpenAI, Anthropic, and
I will find them. I'm onto their dev channels, so I
yeah,
will
yeah,
find
yeah.
them.
But then,
We'll
right.
post this link there.
Yeah, let's spread the podcast far and wide. Yeah, so
Definitely.
good points. And I guess, so I was just listening to another podcast of Machine Learning Street Talk this morning, and particularly this is relevant because the new top score on Arc AGI 2 of 29% by this guy, Jeremy Berman, where he's a research scientist at Reflection AI, and they're like, it was a really interesting conversation there on MLST
Mhm.
about, you know, moving the LLMs away from this, whatever it is they're doing now, onto really solid reasoning. And that kind of like, if they
Correct.
can crack the solid reasoning, they can be open-ended learners like humans could be. But so then I put it, but I mean, the message that you were saying at the beginning, which is like, the AI is not here to replace, it's here to augment, which is very comforting, I think, for people worried about their jobs. But just now we're moving into the more philosophical portion, as we wrap up the podcast.
Mhm.
Like, if these things develop, right, and we get these open-ended reasoners, what we might call artificial general intelligence or what have you, isn't there? a situation in which effectively some jobs will go away. And I don't mean to focus on the job so much. I mean, some people would say, some academics say, oh, like a truly autonomous reasoning AI is a logical impossibility. It can only ever be a tool that we use. But one of the reasons I started the podcast was I don't see why that follows. I don't follow the logic that says we couldn't have completely autonomous. I'm absolutely the current AI is not that, and there's maybe like little. And what we're doing with Ian, we're talking about this whole
Yeah,
reasonings in the
correct.
play group. Like it's an open area of research, but it
Exactly.
seems like we might not be more than very far away from having effectively like AI employees that can operate as
Yeah.
receptionists or software engineers or what have you. I mean, do you think about like so for example, just in the last week, I mean, I almost in developing this. I was talking about this in video. I put the stakeholder conversation into the AI. The AI wrote the code for me. There was another bot that came in with suggestions about the code. I didn't really need to write any code. Almost now, I've outsourced my coding to these
Mm.
agents that are sort of doing it for me, and I'm operating as a supervisor. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I absolutely, to the extent that I can stay at being the supervisor, that's augmenting me. But there's a degree to which the nature of the job is changing, and almost, I guess, I guess you would say, however capable they become, there's always going to be the need for human supervision. Is that what you're saying?
So to a good extent, yes, because at the moment, till it evolves to a state like, as I said, if Claude Code, sorry, if Anthropic and OpenAI and Cursor and all the other companies in that space
Mm,
don't develop solutions that are holistically solving our problems, we will need someone to check, recheck, review, correct, curate. Like, for example, the blog
mm,
post I'm talking about, I need to still go and edit it and change it and update it
mm,
and bring it to my taste, but it's not like it's ready to go and publish, right?
mm,
And same with the code that you generate, it still generates a pull request. It doesn't merge it into master automatically, right?
mm,
And
mm.
shouldn't, in fact, do that.
No,
It should ask
certainly
you
not at the
for all
moment.
the exactly.
Yeah.
And even if it passes all the tests, those tests need to be like, human curated tests. They shouldn't be tests that is just passing, with wrong data and not using the implementation
Yeah,
it has
yeah.
used, things like that. So there's need to be lots and lots of checks and balances. And the other bits is you had a point there, jobs are going to change, society is going to transform. So the way we look at work is going to transform, right?
Mm,
So if you look at work in the non-transactional salary employer-employee base, and we look at it a whole different ways where we have actually built a system that can is self-sufficient and it's it's a good cycle, a positive cycle in the economy, and that none of the economies or many of the economies don't need to do too much for that cycle, to sustain that cycle, the financial cycle or whatever you want to call it, and
mm,
everything works on its own. Like, there are some countries and regions in the world where, there is no taxes because the government makes enough that, or there's an economic cycle there that
mm,
means, the taxes are very low or no taxes that
mm,
it sustains for those regions. So if the rest of the world or good parts of the world gets into that cycle, then that whole employer-employee work thing, all of that's
mm.
going to go away. And I'm going to make it more controversial now. If you watch and you have watched Star Trek and Star Wars, if you
Sure.
see the level of society there,
Mm,
no one's getting paid a salary there, right? Nobody's
mm,
talking about him. It's like and the whole those ideas have been fed into us in the last 25, 30 years, or maybe
mm,
longer than that, 40
mm.
years, right? So those ideas have a place somewhere. It has probably happened somewhere, it's happening somewhere in some form or shape, or there's an opportunity and potential
Mm.
possibility of those ideas happening in this space. And now with the AI tooling, that might become more and more possible, right? Because there
Yeah,
are
yeah.
examples of AI tooling and AI aspects in those series. If you've watched, there are a lot of autonomous
I watched
intelligence
them,
systems.
watched them extensively. Yes, I remember
Yeah,
John-Luc Picard saying in one of the films, the economics of the 26th century work slightly differently. Uh,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and we are transforming slowly in somewhat that direction. I'm not saying exactly that direction, but
Mm.
if that happens, then if economies change, and there's also something called universal credit that companies
Sure.
come, and there's talk about universal basic salary.
Yeah.
So these are all hints towards something we fully don't know, but we are
Mm.
developing towards it, right? And
Yeah.
and and,
Yeah.
and as long as we don't blow each other up with all the nuclear weapons that's out there, that's what Michio Kaku keeps telling us, that we can become type one civilization. That's a
Right.
whole different conversation. If you don't blow us up with nuclear weapons, and
Yeah.
we can have that kind of a
Yeah.
society we see in Star Wars and Star
We've
Trek.
just got to watch out
If
for those
yeah,
Sith Lords. That's we make sure we don't get taken over by.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So
Yeah.
there are those pitfalls we need to watch out for, and if you don't blow us up before that happens, then we are heading there. Otherwise, there'll be zero, right?
Great stuff. Fantastic. Well, this is wonderful. We've got a couple of minutes left for our last question. Is just what does it all mean? This life, the universe, and everything. Is this a simulation? Are we getting ready for an afterlife? What's your philosophical take on why anything exists at all rather than nothing?
We are all here to learn, and actually, all of it is learning. Like, we keep telling ourselves, when we do some things better, we overcome challenges better, but otherwise, those challenges keep coming to us, right? So it's a learning process in my point of view, and the bigger reasons for us being here, life being here, is to help us learn stuff that we don't know, and you can see in your case, in our case, in my case, things that we know, we gel through it very smoothly. Things we don't know, we complain about it, we hit into a wall about it, and somehow later on we realize, okay, we need to fix this in this way, or we take another direction, right? And then if that still is a challenge, then we need to learn about it till we overcome that challenge. It keeps coming to us, right? So kind of, I look at life as a learning process. I'm still learning, and I'll continue to learn, and I think it may apply to many of us if we believe in that philosophy. um
Amen. No, no, there is always more and more to learn.
yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. And that wraps up this episode of AI Leadership. If you'd like to be on the podcast or join the Rebel AI community that it all started from, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Sam Joseph. That's sam@neurogrid.com, and we'll be in your ears again real soon. Finally, big thanks to our guest today, Mani Sarkar.
Thank you.